right, let's see if that worked. Does that work? Okay, I'm bored. Yes, I'm not bored. This is awesome. See if I can get a stream going here. Open sourcing. Open source time. Gonna continue on. Maybe I'll keep my team norm. Yep. Wonderful. I'll keep my team norm of like reviewing things every time I start, just to kind of get, I don't know why. Feels right. And then let's get going. I did a little bit of writing at the swimming pool. I did a little bit of writing. These 2 pages in my notes, I want to sync to disk. Ooh, good. I can. So that's kind of the only thing I did offline. I realized a couple of things already, just kind of digesting where things are. Hey Google, stop. Okay. Whoops. For example, there's I think there's almost certainly going to need to be a, what do you call it? A tool node, which populates this data model, which populates the the form, the discussion, the information. Let me go to my code. The dialogue. All these names are all wrong, but that's okay. So maybe dialogue's okay. But anyway, during the conversation with the user, of course, we have to capture, and we have to capture basically structured data, because all these like there's lots of helpers that require capturing structured data. So all that's going to need to be a tool node, almost certainly. I'll get into some details there. I have some concerns, but also I'm a little excited to think about what do you call it? Instructor, is it? Interrupt totally crushed that last session. So let me actually review. What's the big review? The big review, I'm going to go real fast because I'm bored here. I want to get into the coding. The big review is, if you're going to do DevOps, one massive, I think, part of it, if we're inspired by Claude, which is like gather information and then make yourself useful, then I think that gathering the information is going to need to be potentially interactive. I can never. Oh, there, I scrolled right to it. Interactive, where there's a Q&A. And then furthermore, I just looked out into the world and I don't see any software to help me build this. So this whole thing's a tangent now. I'm kind of, in the moment, I'm kind of more excited about Chatfield than I am about Vibe DevOps. And that's totally awesome. That's open source. It's going to be awesome. So what is Chatfield? In the fullness of time, I want this to be shippable, to be usable easily in both Python, TypeScript on the server side, and also TypeScript on the browser side. Right now, Chatfield is this sort of conversational kind of dialogue. And it's gathering information. It's gathering up this data model. So this data model simple, it's strings only. Null means it's not defined. And otherwise you get a string kind of object out of it. So, and then where I am right this second is like really implementing the LLM and just getting ready to kind of start prompting it, actually. I wrote in my notes some prompts or some starting points. I kind of don't really enjoy prompting, so I want to just get something working, and then get like a test framework up and start looking at metrics before I just start, getting superstitious and things like this, prompting. That's definitely my goal. So let me kind of process my notes. Graph limits or subdivides. Oh yeah, I started by realizing, so moving through these states of the graph, moving through these little methods in your, these different functions. It's a nice way to trim down and kind of reduce the wire weight and reduce the latency of all the LLM calls you might need. That's when I first started realizing, yeah, exactly. I'm going to have a tool call to populate the data. And I think there's maybe several reasons, but one that's, I think, sufficient is a lot of these decorators, a lot of these do like as int, as float, and I want the LLM to return that to me like that. And I want I want to use basically maybe instructor. We're gonna have to look into it. Oh yeah, I can't use that on the JavaScript side, but that's the tool call where there's like data being sent. I started thinking about kind of system prompting. My basic thought is, what is my basic thought? I wanted to write down in no particular order. Let me start. Oh man, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna put this? Let me just put. I think my Chatfield README has a random place to put notes. The bottom. Oh man, this README is way too big. Okay. Yeah, just random notes. Dialogue finished. So, what's the point? Oh, yeah, okay, so prompt, like system prompt. Let me just, yeah, hold on. Okay, I want to write that down. Thank you. So, right, I want to let the LLM decide the priority of these. Let me just put that. Right, that's the point. I don't want it to feel like a form. I want it to feel like a person who needs to gather a bunch of information, like a good doctor or whatever. You get in there, like they're obviously trying to, more or less populate a form, but it's conversational. They're highly competent. Blah blah blah. Let's keep going. So then, oh yeah. So I was thinking all fields should have a. Let me just write this down, right? Yeah, all fields should have have as LLM, I think maybe, or have dot as LLM, which does what? Which is also as quote. Yeah, definitely. Let's get to that in 2 seconds. The thought for as LLM, I need to keep thinking about this. It seems to me, I'm trying to decide, do I just let, suppose, I know, I think I know the answer. Suppose I say, what's the budget? And I say the budget, and I say, the chief told me the budget's $100. And I say, well, yeah, but it's got to be a monthly budget, or is it a weekly budget or a monthly budget? And I say, I don't know. Or, I know the budget is monthly, but I forget the amount. Like anything like that, where there's a partial answer. The natural thing to do would to just say, okay, like that's just going to stay undefined and we're going to move on. But it's sort of half defined, right? And so I think in principle, you could leave it half defined in the history of the conversation and continue onward. But like in practice, sort of as a data engineer, it's like, I think you got to put that data in your hand if you want to be certain later. So what that gets into is that these things are going to have kind of, it's not just going to be null or it's not just going to be none or like populated, or at least there's definitely a third state for these fields, which is, or there's like internal state, or there's something like that, which is like a bit of a checkpoint or a memo or a note or something like that, to specifically to, you know, prompt it and get it fresh, or keep it fresh in the, you know, in the conversation. I think that's the point, right? In fact, I gotta change the um system prompt. Like, I plan on changing this system prompt every time I query. I'm sure that's possible in LangGraph. I'm sure that's fine. I don't know about this. I plan to like really manipulate the chat history and change the system prompt and things like that, potentially. So we'll see how this time travel stuff works. Okay. Or maybe, yeah, the system prompt has to change. Anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. So there's as field. Or maybe. Yep, I can hear myself. Okay. Let me try to. I'm gonna have to go full screen and keep talking and process more. So, so my original thought was in the system prompt, a field like might need to have a little summary. Like, the point is, if we're saying like the, you know, like user request, you know, it's a system prompt or whatever, you know, and then there's like, you know, so it's like scope of work, you know, already defined or whatever. Or scope of work, you know, blah blah, some scope here. I kind of want to say like already established, like already agreed, something like that. Already aligned? Should I say aligned? Scope of work. So, and the point is, that's an SSL, that's an LLM summary. You know, so like budget, you know, something like that. And that goes into the system prompt, you know. And so then I just thought, well, maybe I just want a nice little I've done something like this, yeah, with document processing, where you just ask the LLM to summarize and you start tracking little summaries. And then not yet discussed. Right? Does it have to be a list? Maybe a markdown list is useful. And in fact, this might capture, yeah, so if I say like users, you know, like user base or whatever, I could say like, you know, asked for, what am I trying to say? Like, we asked for, come in. What, the TV thing? YouTube?
No, I want to. Wait, should we watch Super Mario Maker?
Mario Maker? No, you have to go to bed. It's Sunday. Leave it off. No, don't lock it. Don't lock it. You have to go to bed. Go to bed. You distracted me. can't even find my files anymore. Okay. Bye. Okay. And so this would be like that checkpoint. It would be like this state. Oh, I was gonna say asked for what am I trying to say? Like freeism? But something like that, right? The point here is that this is capturing that like partial scope, you know. This might say agreed, done, you know, blah, blah, blah. This might say not yet discussed. Yeah, exactly. And this might say what? Like incomplete, pending, incomplete, pending, pending, in flight. I don't know. Incomplete. Yeah, I like incomplete. Okay. You know, user asked for free user tier, you know what I mean? But yeah, something like that. So that allows this allows a lot. So things that have already been established can just be quickly summarized. Yeah, summarized in the like system prompt. And you know, the details can still remain in the conversation. That's fine and good. It should work that way. But that's the way like defined fields should work. Next, if it's not discussed, fine, just put it not discussed. And then if it's incomplete, you could just kind of mark it like this, and then have like, you know, the progress so far, and maybe explain why it's either invalid, because there's going to be validation rules in here, right? The LLM is going to do validation rules. So that's the idea. As like, how about this as summary? Or I don't even know. Maybe they don't have a dot as summary. Like need a like dot lm state, which is either come in. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can. Let me type 2 more things and then I'll go. Not yet discussed. Oh, thank you. She's not respecting the on-air thing, but that's cool. It's gonna either say not yet discussed, what else might it say? Or done some summary here, right? Or incomplete summary here. Right, something like that, right? That's the point. All fields in a .llm state or something which is either not yet discussed or done or incomplete. Yeah. I guess if it's done, no, that's fine. Yeah, LLM state, that's cool. Let me think through. I'm gonna take a quick break. Follow the thread to completion. That's part of the prompt. The massive thing, these things in green, is going to be variables. So the system prompt's going to have variables. And the big massive thing, I was thinking like, I want to think back about the naming of all of this just a little bit, but I think you would call a conversation something. So it's not clear to me if that would, I think naming the conversation, I ultimately decided, is not helpful. So like we are vibe coding, I think that's not necessary. But the thought was like, I'm registering my daughter for school. You know, I'm vibe coding, I'm filing a ticket. Like I'm having a kind of conversation, and conversations sort of have types a little bit. And if you tell the LLM that, it's gonna track to that conversation type, right? Like if you register for school, it's gonna probably sound more schooly. And if you vibe code, it's gonna sound more broy and stuff like that. So that's the idea is, but I don't think I'm going to name the conversation. However, I'm definitely going to name, I was thinking of using at Alice and at Bob. I'm going to name, instead of saying you are an agent, you are a conversational agent. There's going to be, the agent's going to have a name. The default can be agent, of course. So then it'll say you are a conversational agent, or maybe the default is assistant. So you are a conversational assistant. But just with one quick decorator, like at Alice or at Bob, I went through a bunch of them. I'll come back to it in a second. But with one quick decorator, like at Alice or at Bob, you can say, you're a, cartoon dragon, talking to a kid on a, like waiting in line on a like roller coaster, And so both the agent and the user sort of role will be definable. I was kind of, and then that'll be in the system prompt, so that'll be fun. So it'll say you're a conversational, whatever, dragon or agent or something like that. And so, and then, you're talking to a user, but that user might be a complaint filer or a parent for school, or a user in the, whatever, an employee, right? Or a vibe coder. That's the point. So I'm hoping that right there up in the system prompt is going to make it, good, basically. And then furthermore, the name of the sort of form will have a name. Collectively called. So if I do like class user request, it's going to take that class name and send it to the system prompt. So it's going to say you're collecting something collectively called a user request, and I'm going to document that that's important, that it's important what your class name is here, because the LLM is going to see that. I think that's awesome. I think that's actually really awesome. Is to say, hey, watch out, the LLM's going to see stuff. So that's really cool. So that's sort of the plan. Then there's just a little system prompt and a little bit of stuff to keep going. So let me take a quick break and tuck my kid in, and then I'll pick up in 2 seconds.